Jake Dillon,
Here.
Larry Fry,
Here.
Scott Schreiber,
Here.
and Carol Tunstall. We have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. First, order of business is to, approve the minutes. Everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Any comments that need to be, made, or comments or corrections? All right, I'll entertain a, motion to approve. Anybody want to second that? All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Who seconded it?
All right, now we're on to item, well, we're gonna, let's see, we're gonna have public comment first. And we'll tackle the ordinance in place. Anybody here to speak? Please.
Do I need a microphone? I probably don't. I really don't.
Well, you do, it's gonna be recorded, so sorry.
I'm Priscilla Hart. I live on Washington Street. I've spoken a number of times about parking and some of the things that I've experienced. And I'm delighted that we are having some conversations about it and we have a chance to make some changes, hopefully. We are looking at a new development up at Four Corners in that area with 465 new homes. So that's going to be probably 3-4 years in the future. But in the meantime, we probably ought to be thinking about what we're going to do with parking in the downtown, because I am certain those people are going to want to spend some time in a lovely little town, and we've got one, and it is right down the street. So I think it's a good benefit could be a very nice benefit for our shopkeepers, for everyone, if we prepare and make sure we have the infrastructure correct. In the meantime, for right now, I know there have been some lengthy discussions about parking, and one of the thoughts was that it was just too broad to institute 2-hour parking throughout the entire town. So I have a few suggestions, and if I may approach, may I approach and give you?
Sure.
Okay, great. It's rudimentary, but I think it's pretty easy to see. The pink area I'm suggesting, and it's on Market Street, I'm suggesting 2-hour parking. The yellow area, I'm suggesting 3-hour parking. And the green area is our Queen Street parking lots. And King Street. Just a minute. Thanks. So to solve the immediate dilemma, I'm suggesting 2 hours on Market Street, west, going west from North Street. So on North Street, you'd have 2 hours. On Market Street, if you make a right, you'll have 2 hours going down, and these are marked spaces, all marked spaces, that's it. And when you're on North Street, if you were to make a left and go east on Market Street, I'm thinking 3 hours. And then there's a theater right there, 3 hours. And the Queen Street lot's available and the King Street lot's available. Right now, that's what we have. Going forward, I think we're probably going to have to look at some other things and ways to restrict parking further up Market Street, because we'll have a big influx of people coming. And this may be a time to give that some thought. But for right now, this is a suggestion and you can expand it any way you think, and if you have any questions.
And your view is nothing on the Ames Street, before you get to the bridge, is that correct?
There are no spaces on.
There are no marked spaces there. And there's no signs. So sometimes people park there, you know, it hasn't been a problem. Same with King Street, I don't think there are any marked spaces there. There may be a sign at the corner of King going to Market Street, but that's really it. So, there were also some comments at our town council meeting about 48-hour parking, and that's the maximum amount of time you can move a car on a town-owned street or property. And I agree with that. I agree 100%. For anybody to leave their car without moving it longer than that, you begin to wonder where they are and who they are. So, those are my suggestions for right now. And I think that's probably a pretty easy fix. And even if it's temporary, I read in the guidelines that, Matt has an opportunity to make these decisions on a temporary basis. So that's a possibility. Any thoughts, questions, anything?
Yes, the reason you're proposing 3 hours is because of the theater.
More or less, yes. Yeah, and what I'm proposing, and I didn't put it on here, business hours or 7 a.m. to 4. So if you park at 4 o'clock, you might be there all evening. The only people who are going to do that are more than likely people who are either visitors or people who are going to a restaurant. You don't want restaurant customers having to run out because the car is parked more than 2 hours. You could probably make some accommodations for folks at the hotel. For example, if you had to move your car at 8 a.m. or if your car is there at 8 a.m., you can't be there longer than 10. So if you are a hotel guest, chances are you're not staying that long anyway. You may check out. So there are some things that we could think about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Feldhausen, did you raise your hand before?
I did, yeah.
Come on up.
Right, right.
It really is. First off, I just want to say thanks for all your hard work. I know it's not simple coming out on beautiful rainy nights to talk about stuff that everybody just wants to argue about. But that said, I also want to say thank you for your comprehensive plan. It's been 2.5 years, give or take, since that was first put into the record, and you've accomplished a fair amount of that stuff. So I think you have things to be proud of. Like Priscilla, though, I have some concerns about what the future is going to be for the town, especially in light of the new project being proposed out at the Four Corners. And I don't know this, it's an open question, but are any of the planning commission planning to attend the Accomack County Planning Commission? Do you guys have any input or say as to what goes on in the county? That's just an open question. If the meeting is next week, next Wednesday? Yes, no?
Officially, no, we don't have any say.
Officially, no, you have no say. All right. So I want to go back for a second because this kind of goes back historically to some of the problems we had with the pavilion. And this is just a FOIA procedure in which the minutes of all the meetings need to be published in public. A summary of what the minutes are and the discussions at the meetings should be available to the public 7 business days after this meeting this evening. In the past, and with the pavilion as an example, your group would meet and it actually took 4 months for those records to actually get into the public purview of what casual conversations were being held about the pavilion. So my hope would be that in the future, that if all of these records, the video, Matt, thank you for having all of that available to us now, and the records that are being put there, but the planning commission was never videoed or recorded in any detail previously. So I think the more open and transparent all of these discussions are to the public and the community, it would foster more than a half dozen people being here at these meetings to talk about what's going to happen in our town. So that's one of the simple things I would advocate for. I would also ask, and I think it would be really an important thing, again, for the future and safety of our town, that y'all consider a special use permit, or as a minimum, some guidelines under which the FOS would operate the pavilion. I'm not saying this in a argumentative or you better do it or else thing, but it just seems prudent. And in my discussions with a number of you over the years, that has been like, yes, it should be done. Mayor Foskey advocated an SUP, and it's just all disappeared. We spent months discussing with the Friends of Hancock School what guidelines should be, and they just all kind of disappeared down the ditch and into the bay. So I don't know. You've answered my question that we don't have to be at the PC meeting, that the county meeting. The new development that's going to be proposed by Ryan Homes for the Four Corners. In the newspaper just recently, Mr. Pambit, who's the commissioner for the Accomack County Council, said the water being provided for that community is going to come from the town of Anancock. So I've researched, I mean, in your own comprehensive plan, the capacity for the water pumping 600 gallons a minute, such as that. The size of that new proposed community, as you are probably aware, is equal to the population of the town of Anancock. So I'm not sure what authority you have, or Matt has, or the town council, or all of us citizens in town, as to what that resource is going to be delegated to. Is it ours and we can profit from that pumping of water? Or is it going to be given away to that project? I don't know that. And I think that's part of a long-term comprehensive plan. In your plan, it stated that we have a safe water supply from now until 2030, perhaps. Well, as I understand it, that's going to be the time that all of that project is coming to fruition. So is our water supply safe? And I think it's part of your planning commission, to understand and make some appropriate input on that. Not just to our town, but to the county as well. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to make comment? Okay. Next agenda item is to talk about this. I just call it parking ordinance, right? So we reviewed it last month. We had the special use for the public hearing. That's what I meant to say. We had the public hearing, joint public hearing with the town council. We heard comments from the public as well as from the council. And so now it's being kicked back to us to then consider whether we want to make changes to what we proposed. So I'll just start there. Anybody have any comments that they want to make? I'll go through it any which way anybody wants. Go ahead.
Okay, well, on the first page, section 2638, this appears to prohibit golf carts from parking in a marked parking place.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Sorry about that. Section 2638
Appears.
Okay, just leave it. Section 2638 appears to prohibit golf carts parking in full-size parking spaces. Which the town has kind of promoted the use of golf carts. They've expanded the 25 mile per hour zones, and I don't know if there's something I'm missing here, but would a golf cart be considered an illegal use in a marked space?
No, because it's a motor vehicle.
Okay, because it's a motor vehicle.
Yeah.
So that's the determining
Yes,
part of the definition.
yes.
Okay. So that.
Where does it say motor vehicle? I mean,
Well, that's where I was just gonna put it in.
One other thing, 2642, this definition of the downtown district, I think is, an improvement from what I think I saw earlier, which extended it all the way down, Market Street to the wharf. And this pulls it back to a more condensed area, which I think is, I like. Cindy Holden proposed this, I think, recently, and, there's a little bit of a typo here. It says, traveling west on Market Street, East Street. I think that should say 2 East Street, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be just before Town Square.
Yeah. Meaning about monopoly, but anyway, this proposes 2 hours. And Priscilla's got here a couple 2-hour areas that would make it 2-hour parking in front of Bozzo's, for example, in Charlotte, and I think that won't work. I like the 3 hours, between the hours of 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. No. Right, well, anyway, that's not here, that's not included now, but that's all I've got.
Anybody else?
I was, I think the 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. takes care of the restaurants.
Yes, ma'am.
Because then you've got the time
The only thing
in
open.
the evening.
That is correct.
How about the 2-hour limitation?
Well, it's not, after
After
5 p.m.,
5.
there's no limitation.
Oh,
You
so
can park
so
from
you're
5
assuming,
You can park from 5 a.m., actually, you can park from 5
Oh, so-
p.m. until 7 a.m.
You can park from 3 p.m.
Yeah,
right?
until 7 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that takes care of it. I
Only
like
thing
that.
it doesn't take care of is lunchtime, weekends out here, Miguel's and the Charlotte, but that's just lunchtime. During the day, after 5 dinner time, it's out and covered. And I agree totally with that.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other comments? No, okay. Jake Larry, you have anything to add?
I just keep thinking we're overthinking this. Works. That one, okay. It would seem simple. I mean, a lot of the issues that have come up were brought to the table by the local businesses, all right? It's not really impacting anyone other than them at this point in time. I suggested it once before, it kind of got knocked down. Why not just amend the business license that part of, you know, in order to get a business license, neither the employees nor the ownership can park on Market or North Street, that they should be utilizing the King Street and the Queen Street parking lots. Seems simple, you know, to print up signs, remembering what time you parked somewhere. It just seems like a simpler thing to do.
I think it'd be hard to enforce, because we talked about enforceability anyhow, in the last meeting, and, I think that the business owners, I know some of them who have decided to ignore any suggestions about how long they should leave their vehicles there, and most of them, and their employees as well, so.
No, it's when you put
There's
the-
that to consider.
You know, put the onus on the business owner to enforce their own application to get the business started in the first place. If they don't agree to the caveat, they don't get a license.
We talked about this before. I think you brought it up.
Yeah, we would.
And someone else right behind it brought up, let's get the business owners together and talk to them, explain that that's what's gonna happen. If
Make it their responsibility.
If they make it their responsibility, and I don't know whatever came of that, nothing, I guess. But we were going to ask them to talk to us, talk to Matt.
Right, the issue is that we would have to keep track of the vehicles for every employee and new employees that are there and, you know,
Let the business owner do them.
if there were trust, we wouldn't be sitting here. Did you?
How would you deal with, those that already have a business license? Can we pull that business license if we put a new?
Renewable, is it not?
I guess, I don't know. I mean,
When they go to renew it, the new license is changed.
County certainly.
And they have to agree to that in order to be here for the business license.
Okay.
You know, instead of sticking signs up, trying to remember how long you can park somewhere, and is this the 3 hour zone, is this the 4 hour zone?
We got a
Seems
lot
like
of
simpler
other,
solution.
there are a lot of other issues beyond employer and employee parking, but that's a major one, I guarantee you, you're right.
Well, that's what brought it to the table in the first place.
And, there's gotta be a way to at least get them to the table and ask them. If they say, heck no, I'm parking where I want, then we've got an issue.
I think you're gonna hear that someday.
Well,
So you need to be ready.
When it comes time to renew, they just can't renew.
Right, I'm still, there's just no way I could keep track of which employees drive which cars. There's just no reasonable way that I can do that. And the other thing that we're forgetting is that in addition to employees parking in front of businesses, reducing revenue, the other problem is we've got 17 new apartments that are about to come to town. And that's going to be 30-something new cars. If they decide to just drop their car on Market Street because the street lights are better and they don't want to go back to Queen Street, the problem of people parking in front of stores is going to be much more problematic, because if they're just in for the weekend, they can just leave their car there. So that's the other problem that's not here yet, but we have to solve with this ordinance.
Jake, did you have anything else you wanted to comment on?
I think Bill called out my concern about the unclear language in section 42, so. You know, it's the enforceability issue and just a comment. I mean, whether the police force can or will enforce it. I may be naive here, but I'd like to think that at least 40% of the population is law abiding enough to honor things like parking limits. So I think that having the signs there and reducing the number of signs that we put, because we don't want to clutter the sidewalks with signs, having signs there would make a difference. And I don't know what the investment is for putting those in, but it seems like a worthwhile endeavor.
Okay. So to kind of recap from the meeting, the town council meeting with us, earlier this month or last month, we heard some comments, just wrote some random notes down, so go with me here, but, Joy brought up Sunday exclusions. You may have seen an email that I sent to you. Mary Clements sent out a note this morning or this afternoon that I forwarded to you all. And if you need a copy of it, maybe the town has it to give out. I have one copy of it. But she made a comment similar of Sunday exclusions. We also heard from a couple people about the 48 hours in the residential, thinking it's not enough, not a problem, and to just let people park there. So. No, we.
I've had somebody park in front of my door for 4 days.
It's fine. Public hearing, the public comment part is over.
Alright.
But we've had people say, I'm not advocating for the issue, by the way, I'm just saying what people have said, and some of these being town council, so they're gonna end up looking at it. And we've also had comments, that our definition at the time of downtown was too large. I think we've seen that be addressed in Matt's. Another council member brought up the hours, I guess, that parking would be considered, limitations on parking being to business hours, not to 24 hours. Let me see what else we Sarah Knock brought up the hotel guests and overnight guests and how we would handle that piece of it. I guess there was also some question about handicap, but I think we've addressed that piece, so as to being acceptable. So all of these came up in discussion. I don't know how we solve for everything, right? I mean, I think that there's not a perfect solution that's gonna make everybody happy. And I think that when we talk to people, we get different responses. And, you know, I think that we have ample parking opportunities within this town. That, the question is whether they are appealing to people or not, right? I mean, I frankly, I don't use most of the parking, I drive. I mean, I walk instead of driving to the downtown, but that doesn't mean that everybody does. But I also don't think that parking on, say, Ames Street down towards the bridge, not even all the way, but you're talking about less than 100 yards to walk from the bridge up into the middle of town. So I don't think the issue is really whether we have enough parking. We do seem to have an issue as to whether the premium spots, if we call Market Street and North Street, if we call those the premium spots, we seem to have an issue with not having what some people believe to be ample parking there, right? And the issue seems to be that some people will park there for too long. I think what I mostly agree with is Matt's comment about we may in the future have a problem when the residential units that are on the second floor come into play, right? Now, in a quick discussion with Larry, he questions what the reality of those will be based on some of the costs that he's seen with the project that he's associated with. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Larry, but I do know that if 17 units come in and if there are 2 cars for each unit, that's a lot of cars for our downtown to handle. And as Matt pointed out, if they park on in these premium spots, so to speak, that would cause, I think, problems for our downtown businesses and for the residents and others that use those spots, would cause issue for them as well. So I'd like to see us solve for that more than the other issue that right now with spots. You can walk around this town and there are plenty of days where there are plenty of spots available. So I'm not worried as much. This is just my personal belief. I'm not worried as much about solving for Monday through Friday, for instance, from 8 to 5, where somebody may be parking there all day long, because I believe that there's probably ample parking. But that said, if we do have 400 and something houses coming down the street, and if we do see these 17 units in town, then I think we may have a bigger parking problem. So, wait. Yes,
From a retail standpoint, that's a good thing. We just gotta solve it.
right. So I think some of the issue will go away if, Matt and I have spoken and the town council has talked about addressing Queen Street, right? I mean, Queen Street's just not an attractive place for people to park right now. But if we make that an attractive place, and I believe Matt has a plan that he's going to be asking the town council to consider, and I think that will go a long way, right? But people will still not find that sufficient, right? Because it's not in front of the location that they want to frequent, and they won't like that walk because they have that same opportunity right now on Ames Street, right?
Correct.
So the Queen Street isn't going to be a perfect solution, but it may satisfy for instance, these apartments or condos that are on the second story, right? And maybe it's allowed there. So in any case, these are just my thoughts on the fact that we have a situation present and then we have a situation future. And I don't know that they're the same solution. Or maybe they are, and we can come up with it. And I don't know about the timing of all that as to how we want to solve and how quickly we want to get something put in place. that while I acknowledge the issue as I see cars from employees that are parked for long periods of time, I don't know how bad a problem this is. I've heard from a few people, but I haven't seen Main Street, for instance, come and talk about this as being an issue. I haven't heard from OBCA that this is a big issue. So I don't know. I don't know how big an issue the folks that operate businesses here feel like they have. But I know council is considering how to move forward with this. And so if we want to put something together, how quickly do we want to do this? And how specific do we want to be in the suggestions we come up with?
I think Matt's got a lot of good ideas for, as you said, beautification, lighting, very important, Queen. But if you make that more attractive, bench or two, plantings or two, plenty of lighting with 2 or 3 or 4 places between the theater on down to Ames, that'll change the price of poker somewhat for some people. And the people that will not abide by those rules just are not going to do it, no matter what you have back there. So I think we've got to try, and I think it's a darn good idea.
Well, I guess the question to the planning commission right now is, what do we want to make a recommendation to town council for changes based on this ordinance?
I don't know that we're ready. There's a lot of different opinions right here.
A lot of different opinions, we could discuss them and figure it out. I mean, if we want to, I'm not saying that.
No,
we
I
have
mean, we
to.
can make, not right now. I don't think we're ready to do a recommendation to council at this point just yet. Personally.
It would call for a vote, right?
Well, I mean, I think that we have to figure, what I don't know is whether the planning commission wants to take that on now, right? Or they want to delay. So I'm asking you all the question of, do we want to take the opinions that we heard from the public at the public hearing and the comments made by the town council, and do we want to try to adapt what we have as a draft ordinance and put it to them for March or not? We don't have to, but we can if we want to.
I don't think we know enough. I know I don't. I haven't heard enough, council. There were 3 or 4, and 3 tonight. I'd like to hear more.
Well, you made the comment, you made the comment earlier that, there was a movement to try to get the business owners together. I was not,
Someone brought it
I was
up.
not aware of that, but I think maybe that's an interim step we could take to, because they're the ones most affected, and they are, the ones in some cases that are causing the most problems. A little bit of everything there. And,
What to do is try. They can tell us.
there are not that many of them.
Mhm.
What else is it? Yeah. And some people may just choose to ignore the discussion or,
So
but
how would we go about that?
I see that as an interim step. I don't know, what do you think? I mean,
I spoke of it before, Big Boy. What would you do? Ask them, walk around, call them, send them a message, get together. We need to discuss parking, pick the time, let everybody boil it down, and we get together. You're laughing, you must not think.
I'm not laughing. I know the 4 or 5 businesses that are having the biggest problems. And, yes, I can invite them to the table. But, one business is saying, I don't care. The other business is, saying you're killing my business because you're parking in front of my doorway, there's no,
Yeah,
yes, I can sit them together and yes, they can hash this
I
out,
think
but
you're gonna be putting businesses.
yeah.
And I think that this, putting some limits on the time limits on parking solves the issue without having to get businesses arguing with each other. And it's not just the business, it's not just employees, it's visitors to town, it's other people who just, are parked there for all day long.
I don't think I've heard the downside of why we wouldn't put time limits. People are talking about why we may not need to do it, but if we did it, what's the downside?
Enforcement can't enforce it, but you may be right still. If you can't, at least they know it's there. They don't know for a while, for a portion, they won't know we can't enforce it. Chief of Police said the same thing.
According to, one councilman, I think it was Megan Oswald, was bringing up that, that 2 hours wasn't sufficient, that people will come in for lunch and then they'll go shopping and that the time that they need to go shopping and to have lunch is greater than 2 hours.
Well, they may go to a movie, you know, decide to go for dinner after.
Yeah, the movies are at night though, so, you know, at the present time. So, and or on Sundays, so. Any case, I don't know what, she seems to have a strong opinions about how people shop. And since I'm not a great shopper, it's not an opinion I share, or am well aware of it. So, but that was, you know, one of the comments was that 2 hours was too restrictive. That she was advocating for something more like 3 or 4 hours. Again, I mean, the first, I think, in the decision tree, the first decision is trying to figure out what we want to do and when. If we want to work on tonight, making changes to what's here, then we can do so and come up with whatever we come up with, and then it goes to council. If we don't want to do that, right, we can take more time. We just have to figure out what it is that extra time is going to give us. You know, if it's trying to get additional information, then that feels like it's worthwhile. We seem to be getting the same information, right, over and again. So I don't know whether we're going to be breaking new ground. But if there's something more that we can do to get information, it's usually the silent majority, right? That we don't know what most people think. We know what the few that come up and speak, we know what they want, right? Whether they're for or against this, but we know what they want. It's knowing what the rest of the group wants.
But we know that the businesses want customers. And they want customers to have access to business. So I don't think we need to belabor this
Okay.
longer. I think maybe the only question is it 2 hours or 3 hours? But other than that, I think, you know, and then the 5 o'clock to 5, I think is good. That addresses the restaurants. But I don't, from my perspective, I don't think we need to rehash.
Sundays brought up to council,
Yes.
important, I don't know that. Sundays, there were a few restaurants.
The North Street Market is open.
Yeah. And, you've got breakfast, restaurants,
Yeah.
right? 2 at least. So within reason, I think you are correct. Is it 2 or 3 hours? Have we heard, are we gonna break new ground? Is there anyone else that will tell us what they think?
Well, I think 2 hours is too short. I have to agree with that. 3 might be fine, and then I would keep it uniform throughout the town, so you don't have to keep remembering that I park in a 3-hour area, or is that a 4-hour area, or, you know.
I'd agree with, I would agree that 3 hours is more appropriate, I think.
Yeah, I can support that.
Matt, are we still pursuing Queen Street? Is there a way to do even a portion of what you brought up many times, beautification, walkthroughs, lighting? Is that going to happen even by degree?
I put a budget before town council for next year's CIP, so I'm hoping, but again, that's the council's budget.
There's no money anywhere like we do it in Marina with BIG or there's nothing for such a thing.
we've got adequate resources to take care of this.
So I'm hearing some consensus that moving from, taking what's here, but moving from 2 hours to 3 hours.
And remove the restrictions.
Okay, Matt, if we remove the restrictions in the evening, so now we have two different issues. The restrictions in the evening, we're gonna be most helpful in terms of dealing with the upstairs residences in downtown, correct?
Now, the way that a 5 to 5 would work is anytime after 5 PM, people are gonna be able to enjoy the restaurants and the movies and the theaters without restriction. So the 5 PM allows for any evening activity. That takes care of that.
Park there all night.
Yeah. Right up until 5 AM. And that's where it addresses the apartments. Because nobody, and I lived in Boston, trust me when I tell you, nobody wants to get up at 5 AM to move your car. So they're gonna go and they're gonna park in a parking lot and they're gonna do it legally. And then the police have talked about anybody who's in a spot at 4:59, they get their ticket. So it's very easy enforcement.
So 3 hours, 5A to 5P sounds agreeable to the group. Is that what I'm hearing?
Sounds
great.
I agree.
Okay. Sundays, that was something we talked about. What do people think about Sundays?
Yes.
Arno, I mean,
Very wide open.
I have one question, please. What's the story at the coffee shop? They're closed.
They're closed now, but I don't know what their business plan is.
Is.
Yeah.
They were closing.
Dude,
on
it's
Sunday.
what the town translates
I
to.
mean.
Their Facebook page said that they were closing on Mondays and Sundays.
Sunday and Monday, yeah, for now.
Okay, I did not look at that, pardon me. But they are still open for business 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see an issue with that, and besides, your place and a couple of breakfast places, I don't see a reason to enforce Sundays, plenty of parking spots. They might be huddled up down there.
It also gives access to churches who
Yeah.
might be having an
Correct.
event.
Absolutely.
So I
Bring
have-
that up.
I have no issue at all with a Sunday restriction, neither do the police.
Anybody that's ever been through east or west from Cokesbury's in business, or they have anything, you see them parking. I've seen them on both sides of East Street. You couldn't even get through, but it's Sunday. And I don't see any big deal. But I am all for no restrictions on Sunday.
So is that in this, in what you gave us now?
No, I crossed it out, so I'll reinstate that.
all right, so everybody seems to be agreeable to excluding Sundays from the law.
Hear anything? Tell me why not? Body opposed?
No,
No,
No other holidays, anything, back in
I hadn't thought about it. I mean,
So-
it hadn't been discussed.
Yeah,
so-
just so you know, the Sunday restriction says that any place where official signs prohibit parking, the provision shall not be enforced on Sunday and other generally recognized legal holidays, except in the area of the town wharf and streets immediately adjacent thereto.
That's
So-
an arena, not necessarily.
I understand. So is that the language that you want me to just, does that make sense? I think it does, but
Holidays covers all Sundays
Yeah.
and takes care of the marina.
I mean, I think we addressed, the downtown piece of it with what Matt has in here, correct? Is everybody okay with their definition of downtown and restricting parking in that area? Concern that we are, okay. The only other piece that I, recall was the 48 hours, whether that was something that we should be concerned with or not concerned with. presently in the current ordinance. It's in this proposed ordinance. Does anybody feel like it should be removed from it?
What about 48 hours with a permit? You park there for 48 hours.
And
Permit
so
from
you apply to
Take
the
a
town.
permit from the town to have to be able to leave the vehicle there for 48 hours.
You get that from the town manager.
Yeah. Like a little sticker on the
No,
window with
Mary
that,
Ellen, I'm not
all
doing
that
that.
48 hours without a stick in the belly.
I mean, I haven't seen where it's a real issue. I mean, there's somebody who parks, out on the street.
Right.
For more than 48 hours near me, but it isn't a problem
Right.
from my opinion.
I'm, as the streets, I'm not all that worried about, but the town properties get to be kind of a hassle, especially down in Bill's parking lot there. It's when people pull a boat in there, it blocks everything off. And I've had them, I don't know where they went, but he was gone for 10 days. And, the boat was sitting there and the boat was sitting there. So that there are little problems like that. I don't know that it's worth an ordinance, but we've also had the same thing, with tractor trailers back in Queen Street and things like that. We had one at Thanksgiving. He was here visiting family. I mean, who cares, right? But it's still more than 48 hours in the public and it blocked a ton of spots. So I don't know.
We,
Confidently.
brought up a joint about overflow parking. And someone up here said it's 48 hours.
Mhm.
Maybe that is a place with, something, that you get 2 extra days or, it's from 214 to 219 or whatever it is in overflow. That's basically what that rental is for. It is rarely filled up. I've seen it filled up on half dozen occasions and, it's done its job.
Yeah, the only other time I've seen it filled up, those are evening events and it's not a problem, but when somebody or a group goes out to Tangier for a few days, that fills it up. And it's a great reason to fill it up, but I like the idea of giving Mary Ellen more work to issue permits for that.
Mooney has done a good job.
Yeah, he has. He has.
If he has a funeral, something that he knows is gonna be a while, he shuttles them over there and lets me know every time I see him that he is doing his best to keep the cars out of the marina parking area through overflow. So maybe if it becomes a problem, maybe we need, my dear, maybe we need some little things that go over the rearview mirror. Say exempt, or
We'll give you $1.
I've been here 50 years, so I get a park across the opening or something.
So I have a question on this, on any street in the town, does that include neighborhoods?
Yes.
Yes.
What was your question, Carol?
So if I park my car in front of my house, I can't have it there for more than 24 hours,
48 hours.
48 hours,
Yes,
okay.
that's the current ordinance.
There are people on streets in this town that have been putting the boats out, in front of their houses for years and years. I know you all know where a lot of them are.
And there's some out on college if they,
That is correct.
Mhm.
And he's
they
been
were all
doing,
winter.
see, he's been doing it since he was running the state barn in Accomack. And maybe that's a problem. I've seen that place full. And particularly if they have more cars pulling in there, that boat's gonna be a problem sitting on the side of the road. He is not the only one.
Mhm.
A lot of those side roads, if you take a left, is that Johnson or something, across from the school? One of the
Mhm.
highway
Jones.
areas, there's
Joint.
there's some boats and cars out there all the time. So I think we need to decide how we're gonna handle all of that or not. I think we've got a lot to say grace over right here, and pick them off as we see fit.
Yeah, I hadn't, thought that the 48-hour, piece in here was causing problems. Now, now maybe it is and I'm just not aware of it, but I haven't heard comment about that being a problem. I haven't noticed it to be a problem. I've noticed that people have parked on the street for more than 48 hours for sure. But I haven't thought it to be a problem, so if we want, my thought is that if this was mine, I wouldn't address it. Right now, it's not mine, so we'll address whatever you all want addressed, but.
The only thing I would say that the police have said is if you have it in an ordinance, they can enforce it. They can always choose not to. That's officer prerogative.
Right.
So they can do that. And so I would suggest, leaving it in and just having benevolent enforcement. And if it becomes a problem, the officers can handle that on a one-on-one basis. They don't need to make but I would leave it in to allow them to do that.
You seem to state that it was a problem years ago and that's why it was put in, but that they haven't
Right.
enforced it because they haven't thought it to be a problem in the last week. So.
Well, I think one of the things I'd like to point out is that you did have a problem in Queen Street with tractor trailers coming in there off 13 because they found out about it and they wanted to park there overnight or whatever with their diesel engines on. So I think that was one of the reasons they also had no overnight parking in any of those parking lots.
Okay.
So,
Well, one good thing is we can always readdress it. Correct. So if this is a problem, we can always readdress it. But what I seem to be hearing is that we're just gonna leave it as is, that residential piece. I feel like that's addressed most of the concerns that I heard, throughout. Is there anything else that somebody wants to put forward that? Make changes?
I think it's a great start.
Okay, Matt, you have these notes of how you knock this up.
I do.
Do we need, from a procedural standpoint, what do we need to do? Vote on something?
Yeah, because we already had a public hearing, and it's not more restrictive than the ordinance that was in the public hearing, you do not need to have another. My recommendation is because this thing's not a fire we need to put out, let's come back next month with a clean copy and make sure that we understand it. I'll put rather than using the strike bold, I'll put a final version in so it's readable.
Okay,
And then you can decide if you want to make that recommendation.
okay. Agreeable to everyone? Works for me. Okay. And that is, the end of that agenda item. Any other comments that the commissioners have?
I think it's a good start.
Great.
And definitely,
Good minute. Okay. Matt, I'm wondering, as we look forward, you have thoughts as to what our next agenda items might look like?
I do. I thought we'd go through the comp plan with the goals and and what we've accomplished over the last few years. And we're supposed to do these every 5 years, so you're a little over half. So we can start talking about where we were, what we did, where we might like to go.
Just from I was involved in the last comp plan. It took us a really, really long time to get, and I don't know that we've gotten there without you finally getting us there, but what should the process look like? And what kind of time frame should we be considering?
My recommendation would be a 6-month period for a strategic plan and then ease that into a comp plan that works into budgeting and all of that. So, the strategic plan should be painting a picture of what the town's going to look like in 10 years. And then you start going to what tactics are we going to use to get there from here? And that's where the goals in the comp plan come from. So it will not take us 7 years. I
Oh.
promise you that.
Yes, that was my first experience.
Yes, I know.
I should have known that was the time to quit. We certainly need to do better than we did last time, not from a final product so much as just a process. I'm most interested in process, and then we can let the product come as, you know, as the public and commissioners and the council see fit, but it was a rough process, and I don't want to repeat that.
We won't.
We've been through a lot of rough deals over the years. We've made mistakes. I have, sitting up here and out here. But we seem to overcome it. Help the town manager. Perfect example is the facility down here that was 250,000 gallons and went from 250 to 750 before Hampton Road Sanitation bailed us out, if you will. We made a lot of them. Look how far we've come down to the marina and got a long way to go. What you've done out here on town to dump our spoil so we can eventually get our slips dredged that we need desperately. So I commend everybody, every committee, including council. They've done a great job, and we sidestep the mistakes and knock heads and go back and do it again. In the story.
Matt, I think that what would be interesting beyond the comp plan is to have a discussion anyway next month as to what other agenda items you could foresee for the remainder of the year, so that we could begin to have those discussions. I think that one of the I think it makes it easier for us to understand and then make suggestions when we're able to talk to residents within the town about these things in advance of these meetings. And we see a limited number of people that are interested or willing to come out and speak to us in a formal setting. So it might be helpful.
Thanks.
If nothing else, then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second,
Who seconded?
he seconded.